I got the link, but it said it was to a work session, but I opened it anyway, and here you all are.
Yeah, I did say to a work session, but that's the one we want.
Yeah, John Sagasser for Maine Revenue Services is also reporting that he's not getting a link.
Maybe we have the wrong link.
I don't think we can have the wrong link.
The one I got, Julie, said it was for a work session, but this
Yes.
is the public hearings this afternoon.
Yes,
All right, let's see what.
I think it was originally sent yesterday and that Avery was just resending it is why it said, because it also said yesterday, it's a work session tomorrow.
It had a new ID number, and the only reason I know that is because I'm on my stepmother's computer and had to relink into it. So, all right, 102. Hey, Avery, can you resend the link to committee members? Senator Pouliot does not have.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just sent it to him. And
Okay,
Rep
terrific.
Kryzak should be hopping on soon. I talked to him a couple minutes ago.
Okay, great. And if you want to co-host me, I can let people in while you're working on any technical difficulties.
Yes, I am in the process of.
Cool.
Oh, he's with us now, so great. So I guess we technically have quorum. Should we start or should we wait a few more minutes? Looks like we
Let's
have
wait a few more minutes. I know
8 of
Ted
us.
is trying to get in.
Okay.
And also, Avery, did you resend to all interested parties? Representative Babbage is having a hard time linking in as well.
Representative Wood can't get in either.
Really?
She's here. Barb is here.
Okay, great.
Okay. I was gonna say she just emailed me to say she was in.
All right.
Yeah. But Ted is not and should be any second.
So I guess these links expire. So like if we do a day where we have like a morning session and afternoon session, once we log off the morning session, we have to have a whole new link or something. If we try to use the old one, it expires.
No.
Well, we
that's
should
not-
be able to use the same link. I'm not totally sure what happened today.
I was just getting a message saying expired, and I put in the ID number, and it still didn't work. It said it expired, but
The message I got was that the Zoom was from 9 to 10. So
Oh.
if extended hours are put on, then that's one thing. But if
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it just does that anyways. Like if you put in a time when you're making a webinar or meeting, it will just automatically do it for like an hour. So if the meeting starts at 1, it's going to say from 1 to 2, but
okay,
like obviously this morning it didn't end right at 10. We were able to just keep going.
Yep.
But the issue right now is trying to get the new information to the public hearing registrants. And I've been in communication with some people, and I'm going to resend the link to the IP list now.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
one of the things that I've noticed in testifying in other committees is that the committee clerk puts a backdrop behind their themselves for each bill that is being had. So for instance, I was just giving testimony in education on LD 1412, and the committee clerk had, you know, the background with LD 1412 on it, so that when people are popping in, they know like where we're at, like what bill we're discussing.
Okay.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, I noticed that in, forget where I was the other day, state and local government, I guess, and they had something like that.
Yeah, state and local.
And she had Forsythia too.
I don't mean to create more work for Avery. I know she's got slammed already, but it really is super helpful when you're just popping in and out of these things.
Mhm.
So we'll wait a few more minutes for Ted and registrants to get on that want to speak to the different bills.
Avery, do you have an email for Ted that's metrocast.net maybe?
Yeah, that's the one I sent it to. He said he
Okay,
got
good.
it.
Okay, great. Great.
Okay.
I don't see him yet, but my concern mostly is at this point for attendees. We don't have a lot of attendees and not a lot of people that are on the list on the
Yeah, 'cause I think
registrant list.
I think we're agreed to hear from Senator Pouliot first on his bill. So are any of the attendees in the meeting that want to speak on his bill? Ms. Caprera and Philip Matthew and Simon
No.
West, William Norbert, and John Sagerson?
Philip Matthew and William Norbert. Bill's here. Linda, I don't see.
Simon West, we need Simon West as well from the Maine State Chamber.
Nope.
Huh.
Well, it looks like we've got a few though, so we could get started. Matt, are you ready, you think?
Sure am.
Nodding his head,
Yeah.
yes. Why don't we start? So we'll welcome back everyone to the Committee on Taxation. We already had introductions this morning, so I'm not sure if we need to do that again, but we're gonna jump right into some public hearings on 4 bills, and we'll start with LD 798, followed by LD 1458, then LD 1410, and then we'll conclude with LD 973. Based on some requests we've had from some of the sponsors. So we'll now open up the public hearing on LD 798, sponsored by Senator Pouliot.
Thank you.
And
So-
Avery, we're live. Sorry, Matt, I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, we are live. Yeah.
So sorry. Go ahead.
No worries. Thank you, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and members of the committee. You know, I'm State Senator Matt Pouliot, and I represent Senate District 15, the towns of Augusta, China, Oakland, Sydney, and Bassboro. And I'm happy today to present LD 798, an act to improve the educational opportunity tax credit. This bill would really transform the current educational opportunity tax credit into a more simplified tax credit for student loan repayment. I've heard from many that the program needs to be improved and reworked, and that doing so would be helpful when it comes to comprehensive strategy to address student debt and workforce needs in our state. 2 years ago, this same bill received a favorable vote in this committee, but it did not make it through the process due to the legislature adjourning early due to the pandemic. With this bill, qualification for this program would apply to any individual that is a full-time Maine resident who has obtained an associate's, bachelor's, or graduate degree from an accredited Maine or non-Maine community college or university, and who works at least part-time in Maine or on a vessel at sea, or is deployed for military service in the United States Armed Forces during the taxable year. This bill is pretty simple. It would provide a credit up to 15% of the outstanding debt the graduate had at the time of their first loan payment was due. This could allow a graduate to pay off their debt in as little as 7 years through the tax credit. This bill would also provide a tax credit to the employer of 20% of the outstanding debt in place after December 31, 21. This would help employers attract employees and retain employees by being able to offer an incentive to pay off their student loan debt in as little as 5 years. The bill is agnostic on degree type or where someone went to school as long as it's accredited. Finally, the bill also calls for additional funding in the amount of $75,000 per year to market the program. In closing, I believe that this legislation will drastically simplify the current tax credit, which I believe is overcomplicated and underutilized. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Pouliot. Any questions from members of the committee? Representative Matlock, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the bill, Senator Pouliot. I notice that you're tapping into an area near and dear to my heart. That's people who go to sea, perhaps people who graduated from Maine Maritime Academy.
Yeah.
Are they currently unable to take advantage of the educational tax credit?
That's a great question and further illustrates the complication of the program. And the answer is it depends. There's
Okay.
a lot of stipulations as to when someone graduated, if they started or finished a degree here. There's just like so many different rabbit holes to jump through with this program. It's a great program. I think it's a tremendous asset for us to be able to offer people, especially trying to, reach our workforce development goals as outlined in the governor's 10-year strategic plan. To get 75,000 new workers here, we have to have incentives. And this is one that incentivizes people, who are in the workforce and are also, maybe didn't start their educational journey in Maine or had some kind of, approach that was less than orthodox. I've been really trying to make a change to this program for a long time, and it's got a hefty fiscal note, which is why everyone's like, this is great. And it's met with, pretty broad support, and then it just hits the buzzsaw in appropriations. I don't know if we're going to be able to get it across the finish line this time, just like in the past because of that. But I do think that we have to be making some efforts to simplify the program so that when you ask that question again, I don't have to say it depends.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions from members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Senator Pouliot, for presenting that bill to us. So we'll now take testimony from those in favor. And I'm not sure if everyone's with us, but we'll start with Linda Caprera, followed by Philip Matthew. Is Linda Caprera with us?
So Linda is not with us, but Mr. Matthew is. I will promote him.
We'll hear from Mr. Matthew, and following him, we'll hear from Simon West, if he's with us.
Yes, he is.
Go ahead, Mr. Matthew. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me today. Just for the benefit of whoever's running the Zoom, I'm also planning to testify on 1410. Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to present to you. My name is Philip Matthew. I am a conservational professional based in Saco, Maine, and I'm here to express my support for LD 798. I have personally benefited from the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit since returning to Maine in 2018. And this has been an important part of how I've been able to afford paying my student loans while working at an entry-level job in a small conservation nonprofit. It was also one of the major reasons that I was able to financially weather a period of partial unemployment at the beginning of the pandemic last year. I believe that LD 798 will strengthen this program, both by simplifying it for individuals like me, and in particular by making it much easier for employers, and in particular smaller employers, to adopt employment payment programs. I actually tried in vain to get my nonprofit to do something like what is proposed in this bill. And I think that continuing to sort of forward that mission is key to expanding this opportunity to other individuals like me. My one reservation with this bill is the elimination of the incentives for STEM degrees, which I do believe carries some value. However, I believe that that downside is more than accounted for by the slightly different program proposed in LD 1410, which I'll speak more about later. And I do believe that there's some good logic to separating out two separate goals into two separate tax credit programs. So in short, I believe that LD 798 offers significant, worthwhile reforms that will help amplify the success of the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit, and I hope you'll support this bill. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have it.
Mr. Matthew, I should have also asked if you can go ahead and speak to LD 1410 as well. And then after you speak, we'll have the sponsors introduce those other bills. They're similar in nature, so we usually have the sponsors introduce all the bills at the beginning. I failed to recognize that when we started. So if you want to go ahead and speak to 1410 as well, that'd be great.
Sure. So for LD 1410, I will also be presenting on behalf of Sierra Club Maine's more than 20,000 members and supporters. We strongly support LD 1410 in the pursuit of our mission to explore, enjoy, and protect the planet we have. As I mentioned in my first testimony, I also come to you as someone who has benefited from a program like this, specifically as a returner, having been born in Portland, grown up in New Hampshire, attended college in Rhode Island, and returned to work in Maine. I also have a significant amount of student loan debt, totaling just over $40,000 at the time of graduation in 2017. LD 1410 plays a dual role, reducing the financial burden of attaining a college education and encouraging workforce development in the green and STEM job sectors. This bill has the opportunity to be transformative in both capacities. For individuals like me, the credit in this bill will make it easier to pay for the education that is often necessary to pursue a green career. And it will also significantly lower the barrier to entry for green jobs that are underfunded, including, as I mentioned earlier, nonprofit roles like those I hold. For the greater Maine economy, this credit could help attract competitive, experienced candidates to green jobs at a time when we most need them. The Educational Opportunity Tax Credit already does some of that work, but this bill would functionally replace the STEM focus by widening it to include other green jobs. I think this is a logical next step because it recognizes the different tracks that can lead to green jobs, including those that originate from non-STEM fields and degrees. This approach is particularly compelling when you consider this bill through an equity lens. A program that helps mitigate the burden of student loans inherently benefits those that might not otherwise be able to afford a college education and those who might have the hardest time repaying those loans. Even I, as someone who has experienced the economic privilege of growing up in a middle-class family and benefited from an Ivy League education, have had to make career decisions based in part on my anticipated student loan payments. This program would help make paying for a college education and using that education for a green job more affordable for the many Mainers and prospective Mainers that haven't been able to benefit from the privileges I have. This bill is a meaningful investment in the future of both the people and economy of our state. So on behalf of Sierra Club Maine, I also urge you to support LD 1410. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Are there any questions for Mr. Matthew, members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being with us today and offering your testimony.
Thank you
all. Before we continue, if we could bring in the sponsors of the other bills and have them introduce their bills as well all at once, so people can speak to any or all the bills at one time. What we should have done at the beginning, and I apologize for that, is Representative Babbage with us, Senator Brenner, and Representative Wood.
Representative Babbage, Representative Wood, and Representative Hepler are on, and I will reach out to Senator Brenner.
Okay, so yeah, so we'll now hear from Representative Babbage to introduce to us LD 1458. Welcome, Representative Babbage. Is Representative Babbage with us?
Should be.
He's on here, but I don't know if he's hearing us or not.
You know, he was saying that he had to bounce back and forth between committees. Perhaps we hear, oh, there he is.
Representative Babbage, welcome. We're ready for you to introduce to us LD 1458.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I had difficulty getting in this afternoon. So, good afternoon, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Taxation. My name is Christopher Babbage. I live in Kennebunk, and I'm privileged to represent House District number 8. I am before you today to introduce LD 1458, an act to expand incentives to live and work in Maine through a partial tax credit for certain student loans. I first worked on researching this bill 3 years ago in order to address a growing and serious problem in our state expressed by businesses on every Economic Development Foundation bus tour I have ever been privileged to be on: the difficulty of obtaining a qualified workforce. The numbers are troubling. Given the shortage of nurses and an aging population needing healthcare, by 2025, there will be a shortage of 3,200 nurses in Maine. According to Peter Van Allen of Maine Biz Magazine, the shortage of construction workers in Maine is slowing the pace of completion and increasing the cost. The number of building permits prior to COVID was nearly half what it was in the early 2000s. Maine has 10,000 fewer school students than 10 years ago, threatening the viability of small community schools. There are fewer in-state students to feed the college system. Community colleges are adjusting to prepare students for the skills we need, but we don't have enough skilled graduates to be the engineers, plumbers, electricians, HVAC specialists, welders, foresters, and computer technicians that Maine demands. The average median age in Maine is 45.1 years, ahead of all the other 49 states and DC, even Florida. Regarding the percentage of people over 65, Maine also ranks first. On two measures, we rank first as the oldest state in the nation. Regarding the percentage of our population that's 18 and under, Maine had ranked tied for 49th. The state with the most young people under 18 is at 29%. The national average is 24%. And Maine stands at 18.5%. Yes, we have a demographic problem, and retiring baby boomers through 2029 will further deplete the already understaffed workforce. Our state needs people. Our schools need children. Our businesses need workers. Our government services for public safety and education need taxpayers. We need people to live and work in Maine. Young people love Maine. They love Portland. They love the mountains, lakes, and seacoast. As they start their families, they want to raise children in a safe, clean place like Maine. Because there's so much to love about our state: beaches, islands, rocky coast, lakes, mountains, clean air and water, safe main streets and neighborhoods, people with a demonstrated work ethic, decent schools with dedicated teachers, rejuvenated cities in Biddeford, South Portland, Lewiston, Auburn, Brunswick, Bath, Rockland, new economic activity in organic farming, brew pubs, renewable energy and technology, 37 million tourists coming to Maine annually, and its biggest city, still small by national standards and living experience, has history and culture, popular professional sports teams, and great year-round recreation nearby. Portland is a national renowned foodie mecca and a popular hub for young professionals. So Maine has everything, what people want: a great quality of life. They want to live here. They want their children to grow up here. But for young people to have economic opportunity in this rapidly changing society, they need an education. These young people then have a burdensome problem: student debt. And compared to the economic engine that is Greater Boston, our salaries in Maine are relatively low. So how do we compete to bring young families to Maine? How do we keep our own young, newly educated citizens in Maine? These are the two problems that are the genesis of this bill. This bill provides for a tax credit to affect behavior by incentivizing people to live and work in Maine. It is to be awarded only when the state of Maine, too, is benefited by an equal or greater amount of taxes paid. It is not a replacement, but instead a supplemental program to existing incentive programs toward educational loan repayment, and it directly addresses a serious problem. The American dream of upward mobility through higher ed has a severely negative consequence to any college student in the past quarter century, in the form of educational loan debt. Nationally, it's past auto loan debt and even credit card debt, with 44 million former students owing 1.7 trillion, according to the Federal Reserve. That debt is a heavy financial and psychological burden on the minds of the young millennials and entering middle-aged Gen Xers who haven't paid it off. What I am proposing is what I call the Welcome Home Educational Loan Tax Credit. If Maine offered the Maine Welcome Home tax credit on educational loans, young families would be incentivized to come live and work in Maine. The move to Maine would make more sense. It could be the excuse or the incentive, the tipping point that permits them to decide to do what they really want to do, bring up their families in Maine. Maine has begun the incentive. The Alphon Fund, private money administered through FAME, provides $30,000 grants to eligible applicants. Another great program, what Representative Pouliot was just talking about, the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit, offers help. I know the 2016 numbers were 13 million to 7,000 people. These programs are important in order to keep people, when graduating from a Maine college specifically, to decide to stay and work here. As wonderful as the programs in place are, the Alphon Fund is limited to about 60 people annually, and the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit historically has served graduates of Maine schools and provides eligibility to a wider population only to those who graduated since 2015. We need to attract more people, the 30-somethings and above, who have experience, but who now may be married with a preschool child and are deciding on the community where they will want to buy a home and raise a family. Former students aged 25 to 34 owe just over $500 million on student loans, with the next group above age 35 and into their 40s owe $601 million in student loans. As they weigh the quality of life with the financial consequences, the Maine Welcome Home Educational Tax Credit could be an important contributing factor in the decision to move to Maine. Incentivizing people from away to come and live and work here by giving them a tax break is mutually beneficial to our new residents and to the state's general fund, as well as communities where this new blood is introduced. Is this incentive just a money giveaway? No, for two reasons. First, my original incentive has been to bring people to Maine who have incurred debt by improving themselves through education. This is new money. Second, in my opinion, everyone should pay taxes. I have structured this bill so that the state of Maine always receives an amount equal or greater than the amount granted as a tax credit. If a worker has a state income tax liability of $2,100, the largest annual amount permitted in this bill as a tax credit is $1,000, so an additional $1,100 would go to the state. Is this incentive just a giveaway to loan borrowers who are not even trying to pay off loans? No. The bill allows a credit of up to half of the amount of the payments actually made during the previous year, helping those that are making a good faith effort to pay back their debt. I guess the average loan, I think, is around $300 that students pay. If a borrower paid back $800 in payments during the previous year, this bill, if enacted, would provide for a tax credit of $400. What I am proposing is a tax credit, but more important than the numbers, it is a psychological incentive to partially relieve the financial burden that weighs heavily in the decision-making of people who have accumulated educational loan debt. A helping hand by the state of Maine can go a long way. Here are the specifics of the bill. For out-of-staters, this tax credit rewards people who move here to live and work and pay taxes in Maine with a credit of up to $1,000 capped at 50% of tax liability in the first year. For in-staters, this is an incentive to stay in Maine with the same credit. For fiscal restraint, the credit is limited in each of the following ways. The percent of tax liability credited decreases from 50% to 10% over 5 years. This provision not only has a fiscal advantage, but removes a sudden cutoff or cliff that could cause a reevaluation of whether to remain in Maine. The amount of credit cannot exceed 50% of payments made during the tax year. This provision means eligible taxpayers are only those responsible citizens making payments in good faith. The amount of the tax credit cannot exceed 50% of the educational loan debt owed. This provision allows that the program is designed to help responsible repayment and personal responsibility, but not to replace it. If all the above provisions are met and the tax liability is greater than $2,000, The maximum credit is capped at 1,000. Taxes actually paid to Maine will always be greater or equal than the amount of the tax credit, ensuring benefit both to the taxpayer and the state. Actual taxes paid will increase from a minimum of 50% of liability to 90% over 5 years, 100% of course after that. As written, eligibility is prohibited for those concurrently participating in the ALFOND or Educational Opportunity Tax Credit as a fiscal consideration. But that might be unnecessary, or perhaps the programs could be combined. I know this bill, if enacted, would benefit new Mainers, current Mainers, Maine cities and towns, and the state economy. If you fear making this investment in its proposed form, there are ways to limit the numbers and target the audience. But bigger and bolder is what will get Maine the attention it needs to get the people it wants to live and work in Maine, providing the state with the lifeblood to achieve a prosperous future. I applaud the improvements in the programs included in the other bills being heard by you today. I see this bill as another important carrot, but whatever vehicle you use to incentivize and expand opportunity to get young, educated people to settle here and to stay here, to bring up their families in Maine, will provide a tax base that will ensure a better future for all Mainers. Thanks very much for your time and attention. I don't have a bunch of people coming behind me, so I appreciate you allowing me to finish this testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Babbage. Any questions from members of the committee? Representative Hanley.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Representative Babbage.
Hanley.
That was very, very good.
Representative Hanley, just before you ask your question, I just want to let folks know I've got to sign off to go present a bill in another committee. So Representative Terry is going to take over chairing at this point, but go ahead, Representative Hanley.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, I know, I mean, I get the entire, I understand entirely this bill. Do you have any estimate of what this is going to cost the state in lost revenue?
I can't, and that will be difficult. The numbers that I'm offering are not large. It would not cost the state anything if the bill were limited to out-of-state people or for Maine children who are living out of state after having graduated from a college. Most college graduates live within 100 miles of the college that they attend right afterwards. So if we're bringing people home, or if we're bringing new people into Maine, that's new revenue. But for the Maine residents that this would affect, that could potentially be a cost of lost revenue, as some of that tax credit would be out of the state's pocket and into their pocket to repay loans. So, but I cannot, with any kind of authority, give you an idea of what it might cost. Of course, the consequences of this could be manipulated.
Maybe the Maine Revenue Service might have an estimate on that. Huh?
Yeah.
That would be my guess. They will most likely talk to us during the work session about that. Representative Gramlich.
A follow-up, if I may.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Representative Hanley. Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is a philosophical question. I mean,
sure.
How do you explain shifting the cost and the tax burden onto those citizens of Maine that don't have college loans or have never gone to college? And
well,
how do we sell that to all the people that won't get any benefit out of this?
Well, I do think all of us will benefit. Please don't misunderstand. We're not talking Ivy League recruits here. We could be, but that's not. I mean, today we're talking about skilled people, and to get skills, you go to school. You might go to Mount Ida to be an undertaker. My point is, people do develop debt in gaining those skills, and there is a targeted folks. I was surprised to learn that there are 14 million people between 25 and 34 that have college loans that make up the 500 million that's owed. And there are another 14 million above 35 in that next decade or so. But the amount of college debt from 24 and under is very small. And so is the amount of college debt for folks who are 50 and over. Maybe that's understandable. They paid it off probably a lot by then, if they had that. But I think that there are people who are out of school for 5 or 10 years who are beginning families, and that's the time when they're reassessing the rest of their lives. Where do they want to be, and where do they want to bring up their family? And that was the genesis of where I was coming from when I started this. Then I was thinking of what you were thinking of, Representative Hanley. Well, how can we widen that that audience so that we benefit more people? And of course, the idea of bringing people into a community, they're going to be members of that community and active in that community, and not only paying taxes and doing all of that, but they're going to hopefully generate new energy into a community. So I'm hoping it's a win-win.
Another, if I may.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I'm playing the devil's advocate.
Absolutely.
And from a personal standpoint, 3 out of my 4 children did not go to college and don't have college debt. And how do I sell them the idea that you're going to pay more taxes, so someone else, you're going to help pay someone else's college debt off, and they probably are going to have in their lifetime a greater earning potential than you do, but you're going to have to actually help foot their bill. How do we sell that to the Maine citizens that cannot possibly use this? And that's I'd say a majority of us. So it's quite a sell sometimes, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. I just want you to know, take the University of Maine College of Engineering. They have 2,000 students in that school, more students in that school than there are at Bowdoin or Colby or Bates individually, But a lot of them are from away. We do get a lot of those kids to, adults to stay here, young adults, to stay in Maine, but not nearly enough. We are constantly recruiting out-of-state professionals to come here. And so under the program that I have, the incentive we provide to get them here, it will never be more than the amount of taxes that they're going to pay in addition to the incentive that they get. So it's not, and it certainly isn't refundable. Some of the, I'm not criticizing refundable incentives, but refundable incentives is when if the tax that they're allotted is less than the amount of tax credit that they receive, then they would actually get the extra money. I mean, I do see some fiscal concerns with that kind of a program, but I do think Maine needs to get people into these communities to pay taxes and to provide the necessary services that we all need. And so this is one way of doing that. And I think if you look at the fiscal implications of the bill, it's actually much more protective of the taxpayer than it could be. But I'm kind of urging you to go big rather than go small, maybe bigger than what I proposed, just because Maine right now is in a dire position of needing those professionals in order to meet the needs of the business community.
Thank you, Representative.
Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Representative Terry, and thank you, Representative Babbage, for bringing this really important issue in front of our committee. I know you referenced a couple of age demographics with some more traditional adult learners in terms of, students who graduate high school, go to college. So there's that one demographic up to age about 24, I think you said. And then, you mentioned another one for perhaps folks in their 30s or 40s. So I didn't hear you talk about older adults who may have debt from student loans. And that's perhaps a bit of a different conversation in terms of how that all occurred. But I'm curious if this bill is really just to provide an incentive to have folks come to Maine and live and raise a family, or is it for any individual who may have student loan debt that could potentially take advantage of this program?
The genesis of it, Representative, thank you for the question, Representative Gramlich. The genesis of it was the peer group of my own children who happen to be very well-educated people, but because of their education, they didn't dare to come back to Maine. And a lot of my former students who didn't dare to come back to Maine because they have to give up a salary that they know could make a dent in their college debt that they accumulate. And so that was the genesis. And there is I've used that word 2 or 3 times. I never use that word, but anyway, the point is that that is a demographic that is huge in number and is a common occurrence experienced by each of those. However, the bill is not limited to that. The folks that may be 50 and over that have college debt, and there are those folks, they could benefit too. It's just that generally speaking, they're likely to be a little less mobile and have different reasons for wanting to relocate. But the baby boomer generation is turning 75 this year, and they'll be turning 75 for the next 18 years. Luckily, 75 is a pretty active age still, and a lot of them are contributing. But the fact of the matter is, we're going to need younger blood, and of course, to me, anybody under 60 is a child. So yeah.
Follow up, if I may, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Babbage, because you've identified 2 demographics that hit really close to my household. My daughter chose to not live in the state of Maine for that very reason, because she couldn't get a job that paid a wage well enough. And with her student loan debt, she just couldn't manage it. So I think that age group, it sounds like that's really what your focus and target is. However, the other demographic you identified are for those of us who are over age 50 who are still paying our student loans. So I would hope that this would be an opportunity for any age group to take advantage of. Is that an accurate assumption, Representative?
That's absolutely true. And Representative Hanley's reference of fairness is why I expanded it. Originally, I was thinking of bringing Mainers who had started to settle after college elsewhere, to give them an incentive as they were thinking about that, because I noticed in my own children, once they had a child who was preschool, all of a sudden their focus changed. And that's a decision-making time. And I'm thinking there's a huge demographic there that we could plug into. But in the spirit of fairness, we should apply this advantage to folks that live here as well. And I'm hoping we can do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Representative Babbage? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We will have.
Thank you so much. And given my conflicts, I very much appreciate this opportunity to do it early.
No problem at all. Next, we will hear from Representative Wood. And sorry, my phone keeps tripping out. For her bill, which is LD 793, an act regarding the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit. Welcome, Representative Wood.
Thank you, Representative Terry. I just wanted, it's a slip of the tongue, but it's LD 973.
Thank you very much. My eyeballs are not doing what they're supposed to be doing this morning.
I totally understand. Because it's not morning, it's now afternoon. But
exactly.
Anyway, good afternoon, Senator Chipman, Representative Terry, and esteemed members of the Taxation Committee. I'm State Representative Barb Wood, and I represent House District 38, which is the western end of the peninsula in Portland. I am here today to present LD 973, an act regarding the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit. The idea for this bill came at the request of 2 of my constituents during conversations throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Taking into consideration the financial uncertainty and job losses that were and continue to be felt by many throughout our state, this proposal seeks to make 2 adjustments to the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit, which I'm going to refer to as the EOTC. Before I get into those 2 adjustments, I just wanted to say that you have already heard about many of the complexities of this bill. I have to say that it took me quite a while and several conversations to just get a basic understanding of this program. You will also hear that of the 4 bills that you're hearing today regarding the EOTC, that parts of my bill are not necessary. That could be, as I said, it's complex and I'm not sure I have all the details. I just want to make sure that the intent of this bill is in fact covered. LD 973 started out to take into consideration the economic hardships that Mainers have faced throughout this pandemic and adjust the EOTC program to reflect this. If one qualifies for the program, one of the requirements is that you must make your student loan payment every month to qualify for the tax credit at the end of the year. Excuse me, I just scrolled improperly. Okay. Simply, this bill would allow for payments to happen throughout the year as best fits the financial situation of the payer. So the first adjustment is this. Those making student loan payments may make up for a missed monthly qualifying payment and at another point during the year so that they would still qualify for the credit. These catch-up payments would start for tax year 2020 and continue for tax year 2021. Due to the pandemic, many folks' employment and financial situations have been uneven. These dates would cover what we hope is the 2 years of the pandemic. There has been some work done since this bill was written, and this might already be covered for the first year. The bill does go hopefully beyond the pandemic by also allowing that someone who has graduated in any year after 2021 and is new to the EOTC program would have the same ability to make catch-up payments for the first 2 years of their loan repayment. This is to take into consideration that the first year or 2 after graduating, one's income is often uneven, even if there's not a pandemic. Second adjustment is that starting with the 2022 tax year, the proposal would also allow for prepayment during any part of the year prior to the monthly due dates on obligations for loans due that tax year. Simply put, this bill would allow for someone whose payment schedule was uneven to still qualify for the EOTC if they made up for missed qualifying payments at another point in the tax year, either before or after the monthly due dates. Most importantly, it does not change what Maine will collect in annual revenue, which I believe is what we really care about. I don't know why this program was originally created to require payments to be made each and every month of the year. Thank you for your time and consideration of LD 973. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Representative Wood. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, thank you again for your testimony. We really appreciate it. And you're welcome to stick around.
Thanks.
Next up is Representative Hepler, LD 977, an act regarding the Maine Educational Opportunity Tax Credit. That seems to be a theme.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to just briefly summarize what I was going to say because we've heard a lot about what the EOTC is. Anyway, I'm Allison Hepler. Thanks for hearing this this bill. Representative Terry and members of the Taxation Committee. I'm Allison Hepler, and I represent the towns of Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, which is where I live, Dresden, and a small part of Richmond. And I'm presenting LD 977, an act regarding the Maine Educational Opportunity Tax Credit. And actually, Senator Pouliot's description of overly complicated and underutilized is perfect. I would add highly touted, and yet overly complicated and overly and underutilized. And so what my bill would do would be to change the date of the EOTC for students who it's currently December 31st, 2015, for a graduation from an undergraduate community college, or university, would be, and move it to 2011, and the same thing for a graduate school in Maine. And basically the reason I did that was because many of these students, this would include students who were in college, chose to make the leap of faith into college during the recession, the last recession. And many of these are gainfully employed, as you know, but are still saddled with student debt. And I'm tying this to the governor's 10-year economic plan, which calls for investments in attracting and keeping young people in Maine and to live and work in Maine, raise families, benefit their communities, and in keeping with her goal of adding 75,000 people into our workforce. And this is part of attracting new talent and also recognizing the graduates who are already living and working in Maine. This bill just further incentivizes that. And one of the things I was going to say, as your committee is dealing with I think this is a really important issue. And I really appreciated the person who spoke, the young man who spoke earlier, who is somebody who's a beneficiary of that. There's some testimony on the website of direct beneficiaries. And then there's also somebody who is going to be speaking who actually has benefited from this. And so I appreciate so I ask you to read the testimony and appreciate the attention your committee is paying to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for Representative Hepler? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate it. And again, you're welcome to stick around. And then for our final bill reading today, it is LD 1410, an act to incentivize the Department of Labor force in the green job sector through assistance in repaying student loan debt, sponsored by Senator Brenner. And it doesn't sound like what we've been saying, but it's kind of like what we've been talking about.
Yeah, it's very much like what you've been talking about. Thank you all for having me. Representative Terry and esteemed colleagues of the Committee on Taxation. I'm Senator Stacey Brenner. I represent Senate District 30, which includes all of Gorham, most of Scarborough, and part of Buxton. And I'm before you today to introduce LD 1410. For 20 years, I've been farming in Maine, and I've tried all manner of labor models to fulfill the labor needs on my farm. Internships and apprentices, seasonal workers from abroad, high school students who were friends of my daughters, and adults who were happy to commute from Portland to be part of our team. There is no silver bullet to solving the labor crisis on farms in Maine, but I have learned a few things along the way that were illustrative enough that I was moved to submit this bill to help alleviate the struggle. My best farm employees come with passion and capacity. They've usually just finished college and often do not have a degree in a STEM field. While we pay better than most farms, a $15 an hour position does not leave my crew with much of a tax liability. At best, after 40 hours a week of work for 50 weeks, they make $30,000 a year. They owe the state $771 in income taxes. The Educational Opportunity Tax Credit exists to help people like my employees who love living in Maine and love their work. However, since my employees often don't hold STEM degrees, they cannot receive a refundable credit. So here's an example. If they carried a $30,000 student loan debt, their monthly payment for 10 years at 3.5% is $296.66. The benchmark loan payment for the EOTC program pays for a graduate with a bachelor's degree from the year 2019, $367 per month. My employee will never be able to realize this benefit. They just don't have the tax liability that makes the benefits of our current program attainable when they only owe $771 annually. But once they take almost $300 each month out of their earnings to pay their loans, they are then living below the poverty level. But here's where it gets a little more complicated. If my STAR employee had majored in a STEM field, the tax credit through the EOTC could be a refund. But currently the law does not support the receipt of a refund for a non-STEM field graduate who chooses to work in a STEM field upon graduation. They can only receive a credit, which I've shown would not make a difference in the financial situation for my employee. And to make it just a little more confusing, that STEM graduate who can currently get a refund could be working as a bartender and then could realize the refund based on their choice of degree rather than their choice of work. So my question that we must ask ourselves is, do we want to reward the chosen degree or the chosen work? My bill rewards the work. By rewarding the work, we incentivize certain careers and we add one more tool in the arsenal to address the labor shortage in agriculture. LD 1410 would create a refundable tax credit for those who choose to move into the STEM field after graduation, even if they didn't receive a STEM degree. When folks find their passion, whether it be on a farm or anywhere else, we should be incentivizing them for making their way to the field that benefits us all. We should not be punishing them because they weren't sure what they wanted out of their lives years ago in college. Do we want to incentivize important heritage work of our state, work that populates our rural communities, work that feeds the people of Maine, work that builds the energy infrastructure laid out in the Maine Won't Wait Climate Action Report? The Maine Won't Wait Climate Action Plan includes a directive to support clean energy jobs and the work of farming, fishing, and logging. This bill intends to do just that, to encourage engagement with the labor that will remake our energy infrastructure and feed our families in the years to come. Let's pass LD 1410 and send a message to aspiring farmers, fishermen, and loggers that this is the work we value. And let's remind the world that Maine is leading the way in electrification and there are jobs available to build our infrastructure. Thank you and be well.
Thank you very much, Senator. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for bringing this to us, and you are welcome to stick around while we hear testimony primarily in favor of all of these, a couple of other things. Next up, we have Representative Falkingham, who is a co-sponsor of Senator Brenner's bill. And then following Representative Falkingham, we will hear from Senator Bennett, who also is a co-sponsor of this bill. Welcome, Representative Falkingham.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Representative Terry and members of the Committee on Taxation. I am Representative Billy Bob Falkingham, and I am here to testify in favor of LD 1410 and act to incentivize the development of the labor force in the green job sector through assistance in repaying student loan debt as a co-sponsor of the bill. This bill creates a Maine income tax credit for Maine residents who work in certain green jobs or in fields of science, technology, engineering, or mathematics in this state, and who make student loan payments related to their attendance at an accredited community college, or university. The income tax credit is refundable to the extent that the taxpayer's loans were required to obtain or attempt to obtain an associate, bachelor's, or graduate degree from an accredited community college or university. The income tax credit is equal to the lesser of a benchmark loan payment amount calculated by the state tax assessor and the taxpayer's monthly loan payment amount multiplied by the number of months that the taxpayer made loan payments within the taxable year. I love this idea of giving a tax break as a way to offset student debt. I fully support the individual getting a tax refund up to 100% of any tax paid, up to 100% of the loan payment amount. My only hesitancy with this bill was in issuing a reimbursement greater than the amount that the individual pays in tax. However, even though I was slightly hesitant in issuing a reimbursement greater than the amount paid in taxes, here's why I still support this bill. 1. We currently offer this program already if a degree is considered STEM, then the tax credit is refundable, meaning after being applied to your tax, you'll get a check in the mail from the state for the remaining credit. 2. I wholeheartedly agree with extending this credit to business or industry sector that provides goods or services that benefit the environment or conserve natural resources, including farming, fishing, renewable resource development, and logging. 3. Even if these tax credits are refundable in the short term, I fully expect that at some point the individual will be a taxpayer in the future for many years, long after the tax credit has expired. Therefore, we will get a return on the tax credit eventually. 4. This bill promotes productivity and gives traditional Maine jobs a boost at staying competitive, as well as attracting educated workers to those sectors. I hope that you will support LD 1410 and vote ought to pass. Thank you for your consideration. I will answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Representative Falkingham. Has anyone got any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate you being here and sticking out with us for so long.
Thank you. I'm surprised that Representative Hanley didn't ask me the same questions that he asked Representative Babbage.
Well, you're welcome to come to the work session where I'm sure we will have many more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Senator Bennett. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you so much, Representative Terry, esteemed members of the Joint Standing Committee on Taxation. As you've noted, my name is Rick Bennett. I live in Oxford, and I have the honor of representing the beautiful foothills and lakes region of Western Maine in the Maine Senate. I am very pleased to co-sponsor LD 1410. I won't repeat the name. Throughout our state policy debates, we are so focused on the future, on innovation, on what is around the corner in science and technology. We now even have an Office of Policy Innovation in the future. But as we rush headlong to make Maine attractive for the best and brightest in the STEM disciplines, we ought to pause and think about and reward and cherish our traditional industries and those talented people who commit themselves to careers in those fields that have made our state the very special place it has been and happily continues to be. In so many ways, our heritage honoring the outdoors and our legacies in farming, fishing, and forestry are actually smoothing our path to the future. I subscribe to the view of this bill's author, Senator Brenner, that we should reward the work, not the degree. Life, as we all know, is a journey, and often our learnings find happy homes and unexpected vocations and careers. Here, we should find a way to express gratitude to those, whatever their degrees, whatever their education, who commit themselves to our state's heritage industries while we transition to the green economy future. I really appreciate your attention for these few minutes and would be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Senator. Representative Hanley, my apologies. I did not know that your hand was up earlier. So we'll have you go first there.
Okay, thank you, Representative Terry. I was just going to say I'm saving all my questions for Senator Bennett. I've been writing them down like mad. I'm going to play the devil's advocate, Senator. We incentivize jobs, I guess, that are kind of in this bill that we classify as green jobs. So what about all the population that doesn't get any benefit? How about a waitress or a waiter or a carpenter? Do we incentivize them too? Is there going to be something that incentivizes other work that has to be done? Healthcare workers? I mean, I'm a little concerned when we keep pigeonholing people and giving them incentives or paybacks or forgiveness of debt. And again, I'm playing devil's advocate. It's not that I don't think this is a worthwhile idea, but we need to sell it to all of our citizens with a straight face. So I'll allow you to try to come out of that one.
Thank you, Representative Hanley. And I have a great deal of respect for your work in various, in your vocation. And I think, we do have to be careful about this, but I think we've crossed a bridge here already. And, like you probably, I think it would be nice to provide tax incentives for everybody in terms of lower tax rates. And I do think, though, that as we've tended to gravitate our policies, as I said in my testimony, around this notion that it's all about these certain particular trainings and all. And as Senator Brenner so eloquently said, I mean, why do we effectively compensate people for getting a degree in a STEM field when they may not even be contributing in that way to our state? So this is very challenging policy arena, and I know the Taxation Committee is deep into it. You've got all these bills today, and I think you're onto something, though, to sort of step back and say, like, well, what are we actually doing here? Because I think we've crossed that bridge and created a bit of a policy morass, and I would encourage you to do that. I guess my contribution today is just to say, while we're rewarding all these new exciting, sexy scientific things, why don't we take a look at some of these industries which are not forgotten? They're very much part of who we are as a state and who we will be and continue to be as a state. So I know that doesn't really satisfy an easy answer, but I hope it gives some perspective.
Thank you very much, Senator. Looks like Representative Pouliot has a question.
Got demoted. I'm Representative Pouliot. I was for 6 years, no problem at all.
I think Representative, I'm so sorry.
I mean, I know that the House of Representatives is the more robust body.
We just miss you, Matt, that's all.
So I thought of Senator Brenner this morning, actually, when I was listening to my wake up on the Headspace app, which I do every day before I meditate. And today's was about plants. And the woman was talking about some tips to keep your house plants alive, much like the ones that you have there in the background. And she actually had a small tattoo on her finger that that's how far she would insert her finger into the potted soil of the plant to make sure that it was the appropriate moisture. And I was like, man, that is some sophisticated plant tending techniques there. But I really appreciate you bringing this bill forward. As you know, I'm very passionate about this, having some legislation in here as well. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are to us broadening this out. I think we might have talked a little bit about this when you wrote me about the bill initially. Broadening this out to just be kind of agnostic in terms of the field. And the reason I ask is I remember vividly speaking with then Governor Paul LePage about the need to expand and simplify this program. And, he said to me, he's like, we really need to focus on specific trades that we're trying to grow in this state. And if we broaden this out too much, it's going to make it easier for underwater basket weavers to get this program. And I'm like, so what? I mean, if they went to school for that and they're here contributing to the main economy and helping us grow, then so be it. And I just wonder if you would be open to us kind of broadening this out. And I guess it's more of a question for the sponsor than for you, Senator Bennett, or perhaps you could both answer.
I'll defer to the sponsor. She seems like she had something to say. So
that's fine.
Thank you for indulging me, Representative Terry, and thank you for the question, Senator. And I would say that, yes, of course, I would be very open. I think I presented a discrete bill because I was hoping that something would change. But yes, of course, I would be very open. And if you would indulge me, Representative Terry, to answer Representative Hanley's question, I'd like to address that as well.
Sure.
Representative Hanley, I think you bring up a very good question. What I would argue is that farming, fishing, forestry, logging, these are professions that provide a great benefit to the state, but they're not incredibly profitable. Oftentimes workers end up becoming owners and starting their own businesses. But with regard to the waitress, they're the ones producing the food that hopefully she or he gets to serve. And for the carpenter or the contractor, hopefully these are forest products that are produced as a result of being able to fill these positions and address this labor shortage. So I think there are direct benefits across the board for all Mainers by making sure you can fill labor positions within these fields by offering incentives.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Hanley, is that, do you want to follow up or anything?
No, I wanted to kick the door open that we needed to discuss this in a broad way. Now I found out I wasted my training as a basket weaver.
Since that's a question to me, no, I would just simply say I think this is a great discussion to have. I'm glad you took these bills together because this, I think that we have this kind of mishmash and it's just sort of accumulated over time. And I think taking a more strategic approach, like this committee is doing through having these hearings together, is a very sensible. I'd encourage you in that direction.
Thank you. And you're all welcome to come to the work session where we're supposed to be talking about it.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Thank you very much to all of the legislators that have presented this afternoon. We will now continue taking testimony from members of the public for those speaking in favor of. And next on our list is Mr. Matthew. Mr. Matthew, if you want to unmute yourself and let's see, turn your camera on. You are welcome to finally give your testimony. Welcome.
Hello again. I actually already shared my testimony for that bill.
I thought so, and I think I kicked somebody else off, so we'll grab them. I appreciate you letting me know that. Thank you so much. So next up then would be, I believe, Mr. Adams, Tucker Adams, is that right? I apologize, my screen is all over the place this afternoon.
Just promoted Tucker.
Excellent, thank you very much, Avery.
Good morning, can everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you for waiting. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Good morning, Chair Terry and members of the Tax Committee. My name is Tucker Adams, and I'm a resident of Portland, a proud Maine Black Bear, and a boomerang back to the state of Maine with a pit stop in California. Myself and my brother brought the idea for Bill LD 973 to Representative Wood, and I am a strong proponent. The Opportunity Maine tax credit and its impact on Maine learners is one of the key foundations for young people living in the state to be able to afford pursuing a higher education and encouraging them to remain a resident while continuing to contribute to Maine's economy. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Opportunity Maine participants found themselves in a lurch, having to choose between getting a tax incentive that would reduce their overall tax burden or putting food on the table. The pandemic hit these participants very hard. Some were laid off for months or indefinitely as we shut down or slowed businesses to stop the spread of the pandemic and protect those that were most vulnerable. Some were fearful of losing their positions, deciding that their best course of action was to save these funds, just in case, being fiscally responsible, but being penalized for doing so. Or they were newly graduated individuals who found themselves in a job market that was shuttered and applying for positions outside their industry that could not support them fully in their loan payments. Thankfully, after this bill was written, as Representative Wood said, the Opportunity Maine tax worksheet for 2020 partially addressed the problem of payments made during this pandemic and allowed lump sum payments to happen in the calendar year. I'm unsure if the Maine Revenue Service will do this again in 2021, and I believe it is necessary in order to help those Mainers struggling during the pandemic to do so. With that in mind, this bill may need to be amended to allow those that are still struggling with the pandemic conditions to make up payments that would have been paid during this emergency crisis. The language in this bill also addresses a need for Mainers who are just out of higher education and are looking for a position in their career field. Oftentimes, in situations like my own, finding positions within their field with equitable pay can be a years-long process as our economy still develops. This bill helps newly graduated taxpayers to make catch-up payments for up to 2 years in order to cement a career in our state for many years to come and ease that burden on them, allowing them the flexibility to make payments when they're able to in the first 2 years. In short, this step would add to the Opportunity Maine's program's goal of keeping Mainers in our state and contributing to our economy. I appreciate the time that you have given me and look forward to any questions that you might have about surrounding making of this bill with Representative Wood.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Adams? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate you being here and for hanging in with us for a while.
Thank you, Chair Terry, much appreciated.
Thank you. Next up is Simon West. Following Mr. West will be William Norbert. Welcome, Mr. West.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Representative Terry and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Taxation. My name is Simon West. I'm a resident of Gardner, Maine, and I'm here representing the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. I'm also standing in for my good friend and colleague, Linda Caprera. She was unable to make it today, but she did provide me with some testimony that I'm happy to offer because this is important to her, the chamber, and our members. It's going to go over all the bills that were discussed today. And with that being said, if there are questions at the end, I will happily send them Linda's way and have her get back to you. The Maine State Chamber of Commerce supports the Maine Educational Opportunity Tax Credit and the use of tax credits in general to help ease the burden of the high cost of education. These bills vary in their approach, but we feel the intent is the same. Unfortunately, many students are saddled with enormous debt coming out of college. The use of tax credits can help to alleviate this burden. Anything we can do to make Maine more attractive for our young people to live and work here is something the state should pursue. That's why we support the use of tax credits to accomplish this and feel it is a wise investment in our future. Investing in our future by attracting more young people to the state will help develop Maine's workforce. This is crucial to the state's long-term economic survival and is absolutely necessary to grow Maine's economy. The importance of the Educational Opportunity Tax Credit in attracting new talent is identified in the state strategic plan as action item B3. The recommendation is to expand and simplify the credit. We feel this is accomplished in LD 798 that proposes to simplify the current credit. The cost of higher education has grown considerably. However, the benefits to the state of having Mainers attain credentials valued by businesses and industry is invaluable. The Maine State Chamber of Commerce is part of a coalition called Maine Spark. This coalition is made up of schools, universities, nonprofits, and businesses around the state working towards a goal of having 60% of Mainers attain credentials valued by Maine businesses and industries by 2025. According to Maine Spark, Maine is currently at 50.5%. We need to continue to encourage the attainment of higher education. We also need to help alleviate the costs as well. These bills help us get there. Thank you for listening. And if there are any questions, I will gladly write them down for Linda. I do just want to say one thing as a recent graduate with some student loan debt, because there were questions about how to sell this to people who aren't directly impacted by this. And I would say that I myself, being able to take advantage of such a tax credit, and am in a salary rate where my propensity to spend money that is available to me is high. And so by alleviating some student loan debt, I would add more to the economic activity to the state of Maine, which would drive more goods and services and create some indirect benefit for people who work in fields who didn't necessarily go to college, but are heavily employed by the economic activity by people who did. So thank you for letting me put that little snippet of my own in there.
Thank you. That's actually incredibly important to hear. And I am with you on that as well. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Caprera on behalf, or for Mr. West on behalf of Ms. Caprera? I think I don't see any hands, so thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Next up is Bill Norbert. Welcome, Mr. Norbert.
Thank you very much, Representative Terry and Senator Chipman and distinguished members of the very hardworking Taxation Committee. My name is Bill Norbert, and I am the Government Affairs Manager at the Finance Authority of Maine. And I'm here today to speak in favor of LD 798, Senator Pouliot's bill. We want to thank him for sponsoring the bill again. We have supported it in previous sessions because we believe the current credit, as you've heard already, is overly complicated and underutilized. We believe a simplified credit for student loan repayment is desirable and an important part of an overall comprehensive strategy to address student debt and the workforce needs of our state. Simplifying and expanding the EOTC is listed as a priority at the very beginning, page 5 of the state's 10-year economic development strategy. Later in the same report, it is listed as action B3 as a form of talent attraction. The idea, as you know, is to enable current and future residents to be able to retire some student debt and invest in housing, transportation, and other critical needs. The report further notes that the current credit is overly complex depending on various factors, as you know, such as when and where you attended higher ed and even what you majored in. The report notes that assistance in repaying student debt can be a major help in encouraging professionals to move to Maine and can be used by employers to attract talent as well. I won't go into all the details of what the bill does, but simplification of the credit is very important, as I've noted. Also, there's a part in Section 7 of the bill, which we support. It concerns the Alphon Leaders Program. Some of you know this program. It would provide this Section 7 of the bill for a state income tax deduction for loan payments made directly to a lender by a student loan repayment program funded by a nonprofit foundation administered by FAME. We're talking about the Alphon Leaders Program. This program is privately funded by the Harold Alphon Foundation. FAME helps them to administer it. And what they have found is that these workers who benefit by having their employer basically through FAME and the foundation's money help pay for their student loan payments, they get saddled with imputed income. It's considered income. So the worker who thinks they're getting help gets a big surprise at tax time. And that has been an undesirable side effect. So the thought is that that we could provide a deduction to help take away that state, at least the state imposed income on that benefit that's received. I have in my testimony, which I won't read, you've had a very long day, additional information of how we at FAME serve as a pass-through entity for marketing funds for the EOTC. The bill also includes increased marketing funds, which we would appreciate. We currently contract with Live and Work in Maine, LLC, which has done a really great job of marketing the credit, making it more known around the country and in Maine. And those funds would help them. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norbert. Does anyone have any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony. We very much appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank
you. Next up on my list is Heather, who I am promoting right now, followed by Jessica LaLiberty. We'll wait till Ms. Spalding comes out of cyberspace.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hi, welcome.
I was caught in a wormhole there for a minute.
Weird, right?
Good afternoon, Representative Terry and members of the Committee on Taxation. My name is Heather Spalding, and I'm Deputy Director of the Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association, and we strongly support LD 1410. MOFGA collaborates with the National Young Farmers Coalition, which conducted extensive research on student loan debt as a barrier to entering the farming sector. And their research finds that because farmers are not eligible for federal loan forgiveness, young people frequently either cannot afford to farm while paying down their loans, or they're prevented from leveraging capital to start and grow a farm business. And this certainly rings true with our experience here in Maine. Student loan debt is one of the biggest barriers to entering the commercial farming sector. You may know that nationally, we're struggling with a crisis of attrition in the farm sector. It's difficult to find people willing to take the reins from aging farmers. In Maine, the demographics are more encouraging, though the need for more farmers is perennial, and the student loan challenge is real. Here, beginning farmers are at the forefront of transforming the agricultural landscape. There are shining lights in the tunnel of Maine's Climate Action Plan. New farmers are stewards of carbon sequestering soil, providing healthy food, creating jobs, and breathing life into our rural economies. In a little more than a decade, Maine has added almost 150 new organic farms, more than any other state in the country. They've added 30,000 acres of organic farmland with annual gross sales of roughly $54 million. We've played a big role in this dynamic through our farm training programs. We have an apprenticeship program for those seeking beginning experiences with agriculture, a journey person program for farmers in the very early stages of their careers, and a Maine Farm Resilience program, which helps farmers in years 5 to 9. And as encouraged as we are by the dynamic community of new Maine farmers, we're aware that they face significant financial challenges, and we hear from them regularly that student loan debt is one of the greatest, one of the most significant financial burdens that they carry. We really appreciate that 1410 seeks to honor the work over the educational degree, as many of the new farmers in Maine do not have STEM degrees. We can't expect new farmers to achieve success in a capital-intensive career when saddled by student loan debt. LD 1410 would create an essential step towards stabilizing our farm population and lifting up the next generation of aspiring rural entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Ms. Spalding. We appreciate you being here. Does anyone have any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you so much again. We appreciate you sticking it out with us today.
Thanks.
Next up is Jessica La Liberty. I hope I pronounced that right. Followed by Evan Gudkowski. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Representative Terry and honorable members of the Joint Standing Committee on Taxation. My name is Jessica La Liberty. I am the Policy Relations Manager for the Manufacturers Association of Maine. We are a nonpartisan, pro-growth, pro-manufacturing industry organization representing 400 manufacturing businesses in our great state and the 29,000 workers they employ. We are pleased to offer our support for LD 1410, an act to incentivize the development of labor force in green job sector through assistance in repaying student loan debt, and LD 1458, an act to expand incentives to live and work in Maine through a partial tax credit for certain student loans. A strong economy requires a highly educated workforce that can innovate and adapt to change. The jobs of the future will require education and training beyond high school, and many of the highest growth and highest wage jobs will require post-secondary degrees or certification. Yet Maine's higher educational attainment rates trail regional rates. Faced with this gap in qualified workers, it is imperative that every Maine person achieve their highest educational potential. Now more than ever, Maine businesses need the university and community college systems to educate the workforce and develop ideas to help grow our economy. We need to enroll, educate, and most importantly, graduate more people with skills and knowledge for this changing economy. Education is a critical investment in Maine, its people, and in our economy. For our state to thrive, we need a skilled workforce. Maine's workforce is facing a crisis. We are the oldest in the nation. Our workers are retiring, and there are few qualified candidates waiting to fill those vacancies. Today, manufacturing businesses across the state of Maine have thousands of openings and no workers to fill them. By the year 2030, it is projected the Maine workforce will shrink by 65,000 workers. We must promote policies which help us to attract workers to our great state, a chief goal of the governor's economic plan for the state of Maine. LD 1410 creates a Maine income tax credit for Maine residents who work in certain green jobs or in the fields of science, technology, engineering, or mathematics in the state, and who make student loan payments related to their attendance at an accredited community college or university. And LD 1458 provides an income tax credit of up to $1,000 for individuals for certain student loan payments made during the tax year if the individuals were employed in Maine for at least 4 months of the tax year for which the credit is first claimed, and for every month thereafter in the years in which the credit is claimed. We believe these bills will be an incentive for students to come to Maine and obtain their degrees and stay here to work. The Manufacturers Association of Maine supports these proposals as pro-growth, pro-manufacturing, and urges their passage. Thank you for your time and consideration today.
Thank you so much, Ms. LaLiberty. Does anyone have any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate hearing from you and for sticking it out with us so long into the day. Thank you. Next up is Evan Gudkowski, and that will wrap up our folks speaking in favor of this bill. Next up would be Mr. Sagaster from MRS, who will be speaking neither for nor against. Welcome, Mr. Gudkowski. Thank you so much for hanging on.
Thank you very much, Representative Terry and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Taxation. I am Evan Gudkowski. I'm from Wiscasset. Actually, Representative Hamley is my representative. Greetings to you too. I am submitting this testimony in favor of 977. That is Representative Hepler's bill. This bill would simplify, expand, and bring equity to this tax credit. Currently, the credit's only available to graduates from non-Maine colleges if they graduated after 2015. By enlarging the pool of eligible graduates, this bill seeks to create a powerful incentive to keep people in Maine and incentivizes more to live here as well. It's well known that our state has an aging demographic, and we need to do all that we can to encourage the next generation of working professionals to live, work, and build families in our state. With the assistance this bill will provide, there will undoubtedly be an increase in home sales and new businesses because of the new economic opportunity to this group of graduates that has otherwise been kept away from any relief toward their student loans simply because they missed the cutoff date. With that, I encourage the support of LD 977. And if I could, I'd like to add a little bit more testimony on some of these other bills.
Sure. You've got time.
Sure, thank you. In regards to LD 798, Senator Pouliot's bill, as I understand, it would change the program to all non-refundable credits and change what is currently a 10-year rollover for non-refundable credits to a 5-year rollover. And the credit will be the lesser of an amount paid of 15% of the original loan amount when payment begins. And with current tax liabilities, I can't see this going very far. It's next to a complete elimination of the program as it stands. I don't know how much money anybody's going to be able to claim from that one. Let's see. And to address Representative Hanley's devil's advocate questions, how do we pay for this and how do we advocate for this passage if you can't benefit from this directly? I'd like to offer a little bit of quick mathematics. If we take a $300 monthly loan payment that someone is getting this credit for, that amounts to $3,600 a year of dispensable income. If we multiply that by, say, 2,000 participants, we're looking at $7.2 million per year of income going directly into the economy. And if that number is, say, 10,000 participants that are claiming $3,600 a year in a refundable credit, you're looking at $36 million going into the Maine economy. In regards to the Green Job Edition, 1410, I would just advocate that there's probably a lot of gray area as to people on the fringe that may or may not qualify. So that might need some further definition. But that concludes my testimony on what we've seen so far. And for anyone that would like to ask a question, I currently qualify and use this tax credit for 1 degree, and by next year for a 2nd degree.
Well, I thank you very much for your testimony, and for it's the beauty of being the last in line is you get to hear all of the stuff and testify on all of it. I appreciate that very much. And I'm very impressed with your quick math skills. That is, I would like you to be at the Thanksgiving table when the devil's advocate questions come up in my house. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Gutkowski? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony. We really appreciate it. So that concludes all of our folks that are speaking in favor of all of these education opportunity credits. There is no one signed up to, nor do I see anyone in the attendee room that I can tell yet. Everybody else has already spoken against the motions. Mr. Sagasser, I believe, is here to speak neither for nor against for all of these bills. Mr. Sagasser, you are up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Representative Terry and members of the Taxation Committee. My name is John Sagasser. I'm Tax Policy Counsel in the Office of Tax Policy at Maine Revenue Services. And I'm providing testimony at the request of the administration, neither for nor against 3 bills and against 2 of the bills. So neither for nor against LD 798, an act to improve the educational opportunity tax credit, LD 973, an act regarding the educational opportunity tax credit, and LD 977, an act regarding the Maine educational opportunity tax credit, and against LD 1410, an act to incentivize the development of the labor force in the green job sector through the assistance in repaying student loan debt, and LD 1458, an act to expand incentives to live and work in Maine through a partial tax credit for certain student loans. All 5 of these bills relate to the Education Opportunity Tax Credit, also known as the Opportunity Maine and the EOTC, an important income tax credit for the state of Maine and an action item in the 10-year economic development strategy. The credit provides refundable and non-refundable tax benefits for college debt repayments for recent college graduates who live and work in Maine. While the credit has received significant national and international press attention in recent years for being a powerful and compelling tool, the calculations for the credit are very complex and depend on what year you went to school, what you majored in, whether that qualifies as a STEM degree, where you went to school, whether loans have been consolidated, periods of employment, etc. The credit should be simplified in order to successfully drive the decisions and actions of both those moving to and staying in Maine, and in the process be made available to more people. College loan help is a major incentive for young people to work in Maine. This is a tool all employers should be able to use to attract workers as well. However, our discussions in the past with members of the business community clearly indicates that the credit as it currently stands is not an effective recruiting tool, because it is too complicated for employers to accurately determine a prospective employee's eligibility for the credit. A chart prepared by MRS illustrating the many requirements of the credit and how they have varied over the years follows is attached to my testimony. And you'll see there certain boxes highlighted in yellow. So you'll see the various requirements and the years going across. And then the yellow indicates when new requirements are starting or the previous requirements are ending. And so you can see the many factors that come into play through the various years. Speaking briefly to the specific bills before you, LD 798, an act to improve the education opportunity tax credit. LD 798 makes a number of changes to the EOTC, expanding the credit, sunsetting refundability, and in many ways simplifying the credit. These changes would reduce ambiguity associated with the current credit program for taxpayers and ease administrative difficulties relative to processing affected tax returns. However, further simplifications are possible and worth pursuing. Importantly, one aspect of the bill, a new credit limit equal to 15%, 20% for the employer credit of the outstanding eligible loan debt on the date the first education loan payment is made after a degree is earned, would add significant complexity. Because making the credit more user-friendly is key to making it more effective, a flat dollar limit should be considered. Turning to LD 973, an act regarding the Education Opportunity Tax Credit. LD 973 changes the EOTC by allowing credits claimed to include 1, loan amounts paid by April 1st to 2021 if due during the tax year 2020. 2, loan amounts paid by December 21st, 2021 if due during the tax year 2021. And for tax years beginning on or after January 1, 2022. 3, loan amounts paid during the tax year prior to the due date for loan amounts due during the tax year. And 4, catch-up loan amounts paid during the first 2 years of the participation in the program if due during those 2 years. Some components of LD 973 are unnecessary. For instance, taxpayers may currently claim all loan amounts paid during the tax year for loan amounts due during the tax year, including lump sum payments made prior to the due date. Other components of the bill require further clarification as to when payments can be made and to which tax years they would apply. Staff from Maine Revenue Services can address the technical issues more fully at the work session. Importantly, LD 973 would add complexity to the program and result in taxpayer confusion and increased administrative burden relative to eligible education loans, including verifying when the loan amounts were due, when paid, what tax year the payments may be included in for claiming the credit, and whether the loan amounts have been claimed for multiple tax years. Next, LD 977, an act regarding the Maine Education Opportunity Tax Credit. LD 977 expands the EOTC to qualified individuals who've obtained an associate or bachelor's degree from an accredited non-Maine community college or university after December 31st, 2011, or a graduate degree from a accredited Maine college or university after December 31st, 2011. Currently, a qualified individual for the EOTC must have obtained an associate or bachelor's degree from an accredited Maine community college or university after December 31st, 2007, an associate or bachelor's degree from an accredited non-Maine community college or university after December 31st, 2015, or a graduate degree from an accredited Maine college or university after December 31st, 2015. While the new criteria in this bill are not more complicated than the existing ones, changing the criteria adds its own complexity. For that reason, expanding the program should be paired with simplifications to the program. For instance, and by comparison, LD 798 removes the degree received date entirely and the related complexity, instead of simply shifting it. The next two bills, LD 1410 and LD 1458, the administration is testifying against. LD 1410, enacting to incentivize the development of the labor force in the green jobs sector through the assistance in repaying student loan debt. And LD 1458, an act to expand incentives to live and work in Maine through a partial tax credit for certain student loans. Both LDs 1410 and 1458 create new student loan income tax credits, but are addressed here in the combined testimony because there is substantial overlap between the new credit proposed by LD 1410, and the existing EOTC. Both bills raise important technical concerns that staff from MRS can describe in full at the work session. The EOTC is an important component of the 10-year economic development strategy. It should be the primary tax benefit for student loan relief. The addition of another student loan credit will only make an extremely complex tax issue even more complex. Instead, simplifying the current EOTC would be a better approach to assisting taxpayers in paying their student loans and attracting workers to the state. The department strongly supports simplifying the EOTC to make it more effective for employees and employers. The preliminary fiscal impact for these bills is not available at this time. The preliminary administrative costs are listed in my testimony, and I'll skip detailing them, but they're set out there. The administration looks forward to working with the committee on the bill and the bills, Representatives from IMRS will be here for the work session to provide additional information and respond in detail to the committee's questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sagasser, and I'm glad you fixed that plural. I think
Yes.
we will try to take all of these up together as well. So it'll be great to have you there. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Sagasser at this time? Can probably all wait till the work session, knowing we've got him wrangled that day. All right, terrific. Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate it. I'm just going to double check my list. We have no one else speaking neither for nor against, nor neither for nor against any of the bills in front of us. So that concludes the public hearing for today. I will remind everyone that there is plenty of information on our website with written testimony from folks that I urge you to take a look at before the work session on these bills. That's it from me. Julie, do you have anything?
No, nothing else.
Okay, Avery, you're good? Great. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about, mention, anything? All right, well, we'll see you all live and in person tomorrow. Very excited about stretching our legs throughout the Civic Center tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.